passing, shooting, vacuuming up rebounds, and commanding every single eye in the arena. Honestly, there's absolutely nothing he can't do on offense. Nothing at all. It was a loud, clear message to the all-time greats that he was coming for them. The Joker. Right now, he is the undisputed best basketball player on earth. Even Dennis Rodman would have struggled to guard him. His statistical impact is completely undeniable, a pure master of basketball. Last season, absolutely nobody touched the ball more than Nikola Jokic. That makes sense. As usual, he was the spark plug starting every single Denver Nuggets possession in a system built entirely around him. But look closer at how long he actually holds the ball, and things get weird. Usually, for elite stars to control a game, they have to dominate individual possessions. For as long as we've watched hoops, they've done that by pounding the leather and dominating the ball. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka, Brunson, every high-profile engine dominates possession time except for Nikola Jokic. On average, he holds it for just 2.7 seconds per touch, identical to Herb Jones. Yet somehow, he still led the entire league in assists. His entire career has followed this exact trend. Ever since he arrived from Serbia, Jokic has been a walking glitch in the system, equally dominant and casually effortless. Even after 10 seasons of dominance, nobody has cracked his code. He doesn't play with that ruthless, killer instinct we saw in Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. There's no explosive athleticism easing his path the way it did for Shaq or LeBron James. Instead, he spends summers in Serbia, completely ignoring typical obsessive workout regimens. Then he returns to systematically dismantle elite NBA defenses with a sleepy, almost bored look on his face. He's an absolute anomaly on and off the court, a superstar unlike anyone else. So today we're finally answering the question that's lingered for years. How does Nikola Jokic actually do it? Everyone knows where his story begins. During the second round of the 2014 NBA draft, ESPN went to commercial promoting Taco Bell's new quesarito. Down on the bottom ticker, his name quietly scrolled by, with a Denver Nuggets logo next to it. That bizarre TV moment is now a legendary piece of basketball folklore, but back then, it seemed like Denver was simply drafting an insurance policy. Earlier that night in the first round, the Nuggets picked Jusuf Nurkic, another skilled international big man who possessed the classic size and physical traits that scouts love. On the other hand, Jokic was busy slinging passes and crashing the glass, both clear positives, but they barely stood out in a draft class full of explosive, rim-protecting, and high-flying scorers. Even the praise he received was bizarre. His coach back in Novi Sad once said he had incredibly slow legs and lightning-fast arms, a scouting report that made no sense until you watched him play. To put it plainly, Jokic didn't look anything like a modern NBA starting center under the league's standard blueprint back then. He generated quiet but highly confident buzz out of his tiny hometown of Sombor, but he certainly wasn't protecting the paint or demanding endless, slow, low-post isolations. Jusuf Nurkic looked exactly like the type of physical enforcer who could check those boxes, but late in his rookie campaign, his knee gave out with a torn patellar tendon. When Jokic finally crossed the Atlantic a year later, he put together one of the absolute most fascinating rookie seasons from any second-round pick in NBA history. Sure, he didn't look like an athlete during pre-game warm-ups, but once the whistle blew, he'd make at least one play every night that left you speechless. No-look lasers, elegant spin moves on the block, and high-arching trebuchet-style threes. Throughout that season, he steadily dropped quietly productive stat lines that completely hid his true impact, while his advanced metrics looked outright historic for an NBA rookie. By the end of the season, he finished third in the Rookie of the Year race, building an incredibly loyal, cult-like following among Denver Nuggets fans. The following season, a healthy Jusuf Nurkic returned. Head coach Michael Malone initially tried pairing them together, but the fit was clunky. On-court spacing became a total disaster. Whenever one of them found a rhythm and had a big game, the other naturally struggled to make an impact. Before the locker room soured, Jokic selflessly approached Michael Malone with a solution he'd go to the bench. Naturally, Malone hesitated. He knew the young star's value, but the 3-5 team record demanded a shakeup, and this gave him an easy out. Unfortunately, the Nuggets dropped 11 of their next 17 contests with that lineup. Then on December 12th, Denver got blown out by 20 points against Dallas, their entire offense looking completely stagnant and out of sync. On that brutal night, only one Denver player managed to score over 20 points, and that was Nikola Jokic. That ugly loss forced Malone to reconsider. Every metric and fan plea screamed the same thing: start the young Serbian center immediately. Just one game later, he pulled the trigger, setting up December 15th, 2016, the legendary date Denver fans call Yokmas. Jokic delivered 13 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds in a 12-point win over Portland. That very night, Malone committed to running the entire Nuggets offense through him. From then on, every front office move was tailored to him, and within 2 short months, Jusuf Nurkic was traded away to Portland. That initial season of building around Jokic brought immense promise, mixed with a heavy dose of irony. While Jokic made a massive leap, Denver missed the postseason by a single game. To make it hurt worse, the team that edged them out was none other than Portland. Fortunately, that was the last heartbreak tied to the Jokic era. The following season, Denver barely missed the playoffs as their center kept expanding his game. By 2019, they secured a first-round series victory, powered by their newly minted All-Star center, orchestrating everything on the floor. Denver had built a brand new identity. Inside the Orlando bubble, they proved their unique inside-out style could win, staging 2 historic 3-1 comebacks to reach the Western Conference Finals. 3 playoff series wins in just 2 years, and the picture finally started to clear. He wasn't physically dominant like the legendary big men of the past, but he could pass like a Hall of Fame point guard, and his massive wingspan cracked open every passing lane on the floor. We still didn't really know what to make of him. A modern-day Vlade Divac was the closest comparison we had, and even that felt way off. But one thing was clear. No matter how awkward he looked or moved, Nikola Jokic could easily drop 18 points a game, anchoring the offense with elite playmaking, all while looking completely exhausted out there on the court. Slow in the legs, but lightning fast in the arms. Hey yo. Around that time, a theory started floating around NBA circles. Fans claimed that stopping Jokic was as simple as leaving him on an island one-on-one. Sure, that sounds completely ridiculous at first, but they weren't just hating on Jokic. They were actually trying to take a tactical, systemic approach to defense. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. were 2 lethal, elite floor spacers and bucket getters. When defenses sold out to stop the Joker, those 2 buried teams with clean, in-rhythm jumpers. The logic went you only had to stop one low-post threat instead of defending the entire floor. As a theory, it made some sense. But then, the 2021 season tipped off, and Jokic put up 26 points a night, dragging the Nuggets to the second round after Jamal Murray tore his ACL. On paper, his production looked like something straight out of a video game. He nearly averaged a triple-double, logged an insane 30-plus PER, and secured his first MVP. Yet, some fans still insisted all you had to do was leave him isolated. Nobody could defend that strategy anymore. Jokic proved he possessed this almost supernatural ability to make every single shot within 12 feet of the rim look effortless. Seriously, too easy. Those soft floaters and quick hook shots off either hand dropped so consistently that everyone just assumed they were completely automatic. But no other big man in the league was hitting those shots. Honestly, no one in NBA history ever has. In 2022, his brilliant mix of hyper-efficient scoring and smart playmaking dragged Denver's depleted roster to the postseason without Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray. He secured back-to-back MVPs before Golden State knocked them out early. The following season, the narrative flipped. Jokic didn't regress. His raw scoring numbers dipped slightly once Michael Porter Jr. and Murray returned, but Denver became a much deeper, more dangerous team. By April, Jokic missed a season-long triple-double average by a hair, while shooting an unreal 60% from the field. Yet, that slow-burn play style, which looked so mesmerizing in highlights, sometimes felt almost lethargic over the course of an entire game. Sure, you'd get a couple of mind-bending passes or a wild buzzer beater, but otherwise, he was just systematically dissecting defenses without breaking a sweat. Aaron Gordon locked down the dunker spot, Michael Porter Jr. patrolled the weak side wing, and Jamal Murray ran that lethal, telepathic two-man game. Jokic sat at the center of it, all the absolute brain of the operation. He saw defensive breakdowns half a second before they actually happened, generating effortless buckets. If voters rewarded him with a three-peat, he'd join the exclusive, legendary 3-time MVP club. For a lot of fans, that was a really tough pill to swallow for one quiet, obvious reason. Jokic just wasn't flashy. Giving him 3 straight MVPs felt wrong to critics because it instantly forced a massive debate. Is this guy really one of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball? He didn't offer any gravity-defying posters, and his on-court brilliance was incredibly quiet compared to his monster stat lines. Meanwhile, another elite big man was putting up historic numbers in a much more explosive way. So, in 2023, the MVP award went to Joel Embiid. Now, Embiid absolutely earned that trophy, and Jokic openly agreed. But the media reaction quickly spiraled. Talking heads treated the vote as the ultimate proof they had been waiting for. Sure, the Joker was great, but skeptics argued his defensive holes and pass-first style meant he could never rank among the true legends of the game. He didn't terrify defenders or dominate with raw force. Put simply, he just didn't fit the classic mold of what an NBA superstar is supposed to look like. But when the postseason kicked off, those narratives collapsed. A quick 5-game gentleman's sweep of Minnesota in the first round barely moved the needle. But taking down Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Suns owner Matt Ishbia in round 2 was a masterclass that deserved way more credit than it got. Jokic posted a 30-point triple-double average on, seriously, it gets repetitive, incredibly high efficiency. Still, the doubters held on to one final hope. The Los Angeles Lakers got healthy at the perfect moment. Behind Anthony Davis and LeBron James, LA boasted the ideal roster to finally neutralize the Serbian big man. LA planned to put Rui Hachimura and LeBron on Jokic. This let Anthony Davis roam the paint to disrupt lobs and use his massive reach to contest Jokic inside. On paper, it was brilliant. On the court, it did absolutely nothing. Nearly every viral clip of Jokic hitting impossible off-balance prayer shots as the buzzer sounded came from this series. And when he wasn't crushing LA, Jamal Murray was. Together, they swept the Lakers. 5 games later, after dismantling Miami, Nikola Jokic walked away an NBA champion and Finals MVP, forcing the entire basketball world to admit they had him all wrong. In reality, those easy looks weren't easy, and his miracle shots weren't actually miracles. Look closely. Every single time, there's a perfect flick of the wrist. The ball rolls smoothly off his fingertips before kissing the soft side of the net. Right-handed fadeaway, a left-handed hook, a touchdown pass. It doesn't matter. It's all the work of a big man with a computer for a brain and soft touch that makes the ball look 5 times lighter and 10 times softer. The post-championship celebration was truly one of a kind. Jokic didn't break down in tears or give some passionate made-for-TV speech. Instead, he looked like a guy who just finished a brutal shift at his 9-to-5 job. He gave the most relaxed, business-like post-game interview in Finals history, immediately asking when he could fly home rather than celebrate at the victory parade. Sure, he'd take that back a day later in front of a roaring Denver crowd, but for the critics who'd spent years trying to tear down his resume, his apathy wasn't some charming quirk. They saw it as highly disrespectful. To those purists, this was the NBA Finals, the absolute pinnacle of basketball, a stage kids around the globe spend their entire lives dreaming about. Right after lifting the Larry O'Brien trophy, Jokic looked like he literally couldn't wait to go home. Clearly, he didn't love the game like we do. He was just elite at it. Since then, that weak argument has completely fallen apart. True, the Nuggets haven't recaptured that deep playoff magic. Denver hasn't made it back to the conference finals since their title run. To be blunt, they won't anytime soon. But we all know this collapse points directly to front office incompetence, not Jokic. For a while, Mike Malone and GM Calvin Booth weren't even on speaking terms. When ownership resolved that clash by firing both men, they brought in a young, unproven head coach alongside a front office trio that handed Christian Brown a massive contract right when the strict new CBA rules hit. Denver shot themselves in the foot. While their championship core crumbled, Jokic secured another MVP and averaged a triple-double for 2 straight seasons, just 3 years after discovering his love for victory parades. But the truly terrifying part is how he actually did it. In 2025, he shot over 40% from 3 and finished top 5 in steals. By 2026, he became the first player ever to lead the NBA in both assists and rebounds per game. He is constantly evolving, adding new weapons to his arsenal without losing a single thing that makes him great. Earlier, we called him irreverent, but that does not feel quite right. The guy grew up studying YouTube highlights of Magic Johnson and Hakeem Olajuwon. Now, his game is a completely unique hybrid of those two legends. A mix like that doesn't happen by accident. It just can't. He has to be utterly obsessive, loving this game as much as any of us. That is the only logical explanation for his historic stats and those mind-boggling shots. Yet, there is a massive difference between Jokic and the icons who came before him. He simply does not fear losing. To him, defeat is just a game without a victory. After a devastating playoff exit, he stands on the court, waiting to shake every single opponent's hand. Back in the locker room, he answers every tough question without that soul-crushed look we usually expect from superstars. Honestly, his absolute lack of anxiety is exactly what unlocks his genius. And this. Plus, whatever this is, very few players would even try these wild moves in an empty practice gym. Yet he pulls them off in clutch playoff moments without flinching. He cares deeply enough to perfect his skills, but doesn't worry for a second about messing up. To him, whatever happens on the hardwood stays there. Win or lose, the second his season ends, Jokic is boarding the very first flight home to be with his loved ones in Sombor. Basketball is just his job, and the reality is, he loves his actual life much more. He prefers being Nikola over being the Joker. And unless Denver's front office figures out how to build a competent roster again, his career might end with just that one ring. Critics will surely use that to knock his legacy, and it is a fair point when discussing the greatest of all time. But honestly, Jokic won't lose sleep over it. He'll be back in Sombor, having a drink with family, checking on his beloved horses, and playing pickup games on some hidden court. He will stay far away from the spotlight, just like he always wanted, while the game remembers his legacy and the players who follow the unique trail he blazed without ever looking back.